they're looking at large sections, they're being eventually as opposed to housing. What would be your ideal height in that area, and what would be your maximum height in that area? And how do you encourage families into the area through development design? How do you keep jobs in the area? Sorry? Matt, well, you know, you've got 14th story on Albert Street. Are we going to have more of that? Are we going to have 20? Are we going to have 30 eventually, or 5? I mean, what sort of heights has anyone considered that?
Thanks.
So, I think that we should think about height not just from the point of view of living next to it, but living in it. And I think that it's nice to be within about 5 or so stories of the ground if the lift stops working. So I get twitchy with anything about 5 stories, but that's probably not practical. So I think that I would absolutely draw the line at 10 stories myself, but this sort of fine decision ought to be left to the council, who should have the power to decide that. We would approve mandatory height limits in the Brunswick structure plan. Let the council decide. If it was up to me, I would have an absolute limit of 10, and I would prefer down towards 5.
I'll be super quick. I reckon, again, council should be able to decide this, not state governments. If council knows their area, you know. And a great idea would be if we look at climate change as the big issue that it is, and then we said, okay, we mandate all new residential buildings, especially flats, must have a green roof. And that green roof must have the technology around that calculates how much carbon it is sequestering out of the atmosphere, so we can work out eventually, when we all realise that the climate is hectically in danger, that we start looking at our buildings and the carbon footprints of our buildings, and then we start just sort of living as a community going, yeah, I live in this building, my carbon footprint's this, because it's actually really, really important ethically how you position yourself in the world. And yeah, so green roofs for all new buildings throughout Brunswick. Elect me, I should be mayor.
How we see, where do we want development? Is it on the transport corridors and industrial sites? Do we want to keep our streets low-rise heritage? That's what I want to do. How do we include social housing and affordable housing for people? How many dwellings do you need for that to happen? All of those are big questions that we have. But again, I go back to, we're all living, working, commuting, educating our children in this area, and I think that what has happened in Brunswick is it's borne its fair share, and so that in terms of height, we need to be going lower rather than higher. We have a lot of 10, 11-storey buildings. Joe Cannellan, who was here before, was head of planning at council. I believe Joe had a very strong view about sustainability and urban renewal, and that we should have more density in the inner city. I think that clashed with some people and residents who felt it went too far. The fact is we do have 12, 10, 11-storey buildings in Brunswick approved by council. I think we need to have both council and state government and the community talking about this. It's not enough just to leave it entirely to council, because when they did have capacity to do it, there was very seriously tall buildings approved and the community didn't like it. So, we have to spread growth better throughout Melbourne, and we have to have more say in our community, because at the moment the developments that have gone up, coupled with what's happening on the low-rise streets, is really impacting on the livability of our community.
Can I just say the people who should be making decisions on this are politicians who are accepting donations from developers.